You know what they say? An art is not a product, it's a process, and it is permanent when it is achieved without destroying your principles. Hi, this is Ritika, and we are doing reading 28th of Corporate Finance, now known as Corporate Issuers, that is, Uses of Capital.
We are starting with the first LOS, and it requires us to describe the capital allocation process and basic principles of capital allocation. So let's begin with the capital allocation process. There is no single set of timeline or process that must be followed or that applies to all the organizations. The exact capital budgeting process may differ from one investment to another depending upon the size, level, and complexity of the project being evaluated. However, a typical capital budgeting process involves the following steps. The first, generating ideas, then analyzing individual proposals, then planning the capital budget, and lastly, monitoring and post-auditing. So let's start with the first step, that is generating ideas. Everything begins with an idea, and the best way of having a good idea is to have a lot of ideas. The ideas could be generated from anywhere within the organization or outside it. Within the organization, it could be generated at any level or any department. And good management gives due consideration to all the ideas and promote good ones. The second step is analyzing individual proposals. Individual proposals should be analyzed thoroughly using various capital budgeting techniques such as NPV, IRR, payback period, discounted payback period, profitability index, etc. Based on the cash flow analysis. We will discuss some of these techniques later. For now, we move on to the third step, which is planning capital budget. For the individual proposals so selected from the previous step, they are planned to fit the timings, overall strategies, and resources of the company. You must make arrangements for a proper implementation of such strategies, including capital allocation, arranging for materials, infrastructure, manpower, etc. And now the final and the most recurring step in the process of capital budgeting is monitoring and post-auditing. This is because capital budgeting is not a one-time task. When a project is initiated, there may be many developments in the business environment after the project has begun. There may be a rise in competitors, change in market situation, change in economic policies, etc. All these severely impact the profitability and going concern status of the business. As a response to such situations, the plans may need modifications. So in this phase, the actual results are compared with the planned or the predicted results. And if there are any differences noticed, they are sorted and plans are made to correct them in future. Monitoring and post-audit is considered as one of the most important aspects of capital budgeting process. And by saying this, I don't wish to undermine the importance of other stages of capital budgeting process. In the next slide, we will be discussing the importance of monitoring and post-audit. So monitoring and post-audit are important because first, it helps in identifying the systematic errors. Systematic errors are due to identified causes and can in principle be eliminated. Errors of this kind result in measured values that are consistently too high or consistently too low. And the process of monitoring and post-audit help identify them and take remedial actions. The second benefit of monitoring and post-audit is that it helps in ensuring that the management has employed all the recommendations that were included in the audit report and that all the issues that were identified are addressed. If you happen to get a chance to view any internal audit report of a company, you'll find a section there enumerating the key observations. The process of post-audit mainly aims to address those observation points and make internal controls stronger. Thus, it improves the business operations. Now, third, it helps in better monitoring and forecasting the capital allocation process. That's bound to happen when you are updated with the latest information, and that's a part of this process. And lastly, it also helps in developing better ideas for future investment. Now moving on to the categories of decisions that require capital budgeting. They are, the first one is the replacement projects. There is always wear and tear in the long-term assets of the company over the years of usage, and after a period, they need to be either replaced or repaired. Capital budgeting is a very useful tool in deciding whether it is most economical to continue with the existing asset after giving it a repair or replace the existing asset with a new one. This is done by comparing the cost and benefits of the two options. Capital budgeting also helps in deciding whether to maintain the productive capacity or to gain the efficiency or productivity improvement. Productivity improvement can be made or efficiency can be gained through replacement projects. And for replacement projects, you can go through a series of cost-benefit analysis such as NPV, IRR, etc. Now the next one is expansion projects. The existing capacity may be earning decent profits for the company, but sometimes expansion may also further improve the productivity or profitability by adding the synergy effects. So basically, when you expand the existing line of production or add another line, the process may interact together to produce greater than cumulative benefits than if the benefits were not combined. So, capital budgeting also helps in deciding whether it would be profitable to go in for capital expansion or not. Next is the decision regarding new product or services. Adding a new product or service to the existing line of business of a company is a key strategic decision. It requires a proper evaluation as to whether it would be profitable enough or not, and whether or not it will provide a synergy effect to the business. Capital budgeting techniques such as NPV and IRR helps in deciding the same. And the fourth one is the regulatory, safety and environmental projects. These are usually the mandatory expenses that a company must take, and sometimes as part of CSR activities. However, at times the cost of these projects may be so high that it is better to cease the operations of such a company. Hence, the decisions regarding whether the operations should be ceased or not should be taken using capital budgeting techniques only. And lastly, we have decisions that require use of capital budgeting techniques such as those that require choice, whether to lease or buy, make or outsource, etc. Here also you must make the decisions wisely. Now before we discuss the principles of capital budgeting, it is extremely important for you to understand some important terminologies. Some of them are, the first one is sunk cost. These are the costs that have already been incurred and cannot be recovered in future. For example, before starting the project, you spend money on project appraisal and related reports. At the time of starting the project, the cost has been incurred and there is no chance of recovering the same. Therefore, for taking any capital budgeting decision, these costs should be ignored. The second important term is opportunity cost. This is the value of benefits that are foregone in making one decision over others. Say for example, you are a pharmaceutical company. Given the requirement of pandemic situation, you decided to use your excess capacity to produce a drug called hydroxychloroquine. Instead, you could have used the capacity to produce a probiotic that you were earlier considering. But given the current situation, you thought it would be more beneficial to produce hydroxychloroquine. Note here that I am talking on the financial grounds and not on moral grounds. Now the benefits or the profits that you could have earned if you decided to produce a probiotic is your opportunity cost. It is the opportunity that you've foregone for this project. It is the value of benefits foregone for the next best alternative course of action. Now the next term is incremental cash flow. It is the value of additional cash flow realized as a result of the decision. It equals the cash flow that results from the decision reduced by the amount of cash flow that could have been realized without the decision. Here it is important to note that in the capital budgeting decision, it is the incremental cash flows that are most important. Now the fourth term is externality. It refers to the effect of decision on things other than the investment itself. So like an investment decision may impact the image of the company, or it may impact the profitability of other lines of businesses of the company, either by providing synergy effect or acting as a competitor to the previous line of products, etc. There are two types of externalities, that is positive externalities, the ones that have positive impact on the operations of the company, and negative externalities, the ones that may not have a positive impact. Companies should consider externalities while making investment decisions, and if they have already taken them into consideration, they are called the absorbed externalities. However, some externalities may escape unabsorbed. And lastly, we have conventional and unconventional cash flows. The cash flow pattern could be considered conventional if there is only one sign change in the pattern of cash flow, where the cash flow starts with an initial outflow followed by a series of inflow at a later stage. So the sign changes only once from negative to positive. In the unconventional cash flows, there might be more than 3 sign changes in the series of cash flows, from negative to positive or vice versa. This may be a result of expected capital expenditure between the projects. Now, having said all of that, there are certain principles for capital budgeting. They are: A. The decisions in the process of capital budgeting are taken based on real cash flows only and not on the base of accounting or economic profits. And that's mainly because the value of accounting profits is subjective and it depends upon various provisions and estimates such as depreciation. And the ultimate goal of company is to have cash returns. Therefore, capital budgeting process only considers incremental cash flows, and if the cost and benefits cannot be expressed as cash flows, they should be ignored. B. Due to the impact of the time value of money, the timing of cash flow is extremely important. The sooner the cash flow, the worthier it is. Now C. The cash flows are based on opportunity cost. Opportunity costs are the revenues that are lost or additional costs that arise from moving existing resources from their current use, and are therefore considered to be incremental cash flows arising in the future to be taken into account. And since these are incremental cash flows, they are relevant for capital budgeting decisions. D. The financing cost is ignored in the capital budgeting decisions. They are reflected in the cost of capital used in discounting the cash flows. E. Cash flows calculated on an after-tax basis are considered because that's the real money that falls into the hands of shareholders. And lastly, like discussed before, accounting or economic net income is not considered for decision making. Moving on, what is the basis of project selection in a capital budgeting decision? The first type of project interaction that needs to be considered is independent projects versus mutually exclusive projects. Independent projects are those projects whose cash flows are independent of each other. These projects can be selected together at the same time as well, if of course doing so seems profitable. Mutually exclusive projects, on the other hand, are those projects which compete directly with each other. only either of these projects can be selected. That is, only one of these mutually exclusive projects can be selected. Obviously, you will select the one that's more profitable. The second thing that needs to be considered is project sequencing. Project sequencing is the process of creating a timeline for various projects, where investments are staged with an option to go ahead or not to go ahead depending upon the outcomes of the previous project. For example, if we have a sequence of projects, say A, B and C, sequenced to be undertaken 1 year after another respectively, starting today, then if we start with the project A today and after 1 year, A turns out to be profitable enough and economic conditions are also fine, then one can go ahead with project B. Otherwise, scrap the project then and there itself. This way, there is a go or no go option at the end of each intermediate project. And finally, we have unlimited funds versus capital rationing. I know unlimited funds is a myth, but capital rationing, it requires allocating funds to ranked projects. So like we have shortlisted 5 projects with positive NPVs, each requiring same capital investment initially, and we have capital only enough to finance 3 out of the 5 projects. We will obviously finance the top 3 projects having maximum NPVs. When the funds are limited, they must be utilized judiciously in a way that can maximize the returns. This can only be done through rationing of the funds. On the other hand, if the funds are unlimited, which is rarely the case, they can be used in any possible manner. Now let's do a couple of questions for revision. The first one says, one of the basic principles of capital budgeting is A. Decisions are based on cash flows, not accounting income. B. Opportunity cost should be excluded from analysis of a project. C. Cash flows should be analyzed on a pre-tax basis. We've just discussed the 5 key principles of capital budgeting decisions, and those 5 principles are: first, decisions are based on cash flows and not accounting income. 2. Cash flows are based on opportunity costs. Third, the timing of cash flows is important. Fourth, cash flows are analyzed on after-tax basis. And finally, financing costs are reflected in the project's required rate of return. And you must remember them for exams. So out of the given options, only option A is a principle. Option B and C are false statements. You can pause this here and read the principles again. And tell us in the comments below why you think so. But here option A is correct. Let's do another question. And all you MCU fans, stop smiling. So this question says, Star Corp just announced a sale of 30 Warcrafts to Wakanda, a project with a net present value of $10 million. The investors did not anticipate the sale because government approval to sell to Wakanda has never been granted before. The share price of Star Corporation should A. Increase by NPV times 1 minus corporate tax rate divided by the number of common shares outstanding. B. Not necessarily change because the new contract announcements are made all the time. C. Increase by the project NPV divided by the number of common shares outstanding. That's what they do all the time. They add a little catch to confuse you. But if you are clear with your concepts and basics, there's no power in this world that can confuse you. Here, since the sale was not anticipated by the market, the option B will not hold true. The share price should rise by NPV of the project per common share. NPV is already calculated using the after-tax cash flows. So NPV may not be adjusted for the tax effects as in the case of option A. So option C is correct. So that was LOS A. If you have any questions, you can contact us through the link in description below. There are questions for your practice at our website along with the complete study notes. Check out the free resources at our website and stay tuned for updates.